She poisoned her husband, then wrote a book about missing him. A woman poisons her husband, watches him die in their bed while their 3 kids sleep down the hall, closes a mansion the next morning, then a year later writes a children's book about grief, dedicates it to her amazing husband, goes on television smiling and promoting it, and she almost got away with it. This is the story of Kouri Richins, and if you think you've heard dark before, sit down. Comus, Utah, mountain town, big skies, 40 miles outside of Salt Lake City. Eric and Kouri Richins lived there with their 3 young sons. From the outside, the dream. Eric ran a stone masonry business. Kouri flipped houses, money, a beautiful home near Park City, the whole picture. But behind the front door, that picture was forgery. Kouri's real estate business was imploding. She was millions in debt and not just her own. She racked up obligations in Eric's names, forged documents, opened accounts he didn't know about. A forensic accountant would later testify her net worth was negative $1.6 million the day after Eric died. And while her finances collapsed, Kouri was building something else, a relationship with a man named Robert Josh Grossman. They texted constantly. She told him she loved him, dreamed about their future together in writing. On the night Eric died, she texted Grossman 2 words, "Love you." But here's what makes this tragedy unbearable. Eric wasn't oblivious. He knew. His family testified that Eric told them directly if anything ever happened to him, Kouri was to blame. He said he was worried she'd kill him for money. He wanted his kids protected financially. Years earlier, they traveled to Greece. Kouri gave him a drink. He became violently ill, called his sister from overseas, and said he believed his wife had just tried to kill him. And he stayed, because of the boys. 3 little kids who needed their dad at soccer practice, at baseball, at basketball. Eric was the kind of father who showed up for everything, so he made the calculation millions of parents make. He endured the marriage for his children. Quietly, he started protecting himself, removed Kouri from his will, changed his life insurance beneficiary to his sister, transferred the house and his business into a trust. He was planning for divorce. He just wasn't fast enough. Because Kouri had her own insurance plan. She'd secretly taken out 4 life insurance policies on Eric, totaling $2.2 million without his knowledge. At least one application was fraudulent. She was betting on his death years before she caused it. Then she started shopping for the weapon. She went to the family's housekeeper, Carmen Lauber, and asked for pills. First time said it was for an investor with a back injury. Second time came back for more. Third time she dropped the act entirely, asked for something stronger. Asked for, and these are the words from the trial testimony, the Michael Jackson stuff. She didn't know the street name was fentanyl, but she knew Michael Jackson died from drugs, and she wanted whatever killed him. Lauber brought more than 15 pills from a dealer at a gas station and handed them to Kouri. Valentine's Day 2022, Kouri left Eric a sandwich with a love note, then went to meet her boyfriend. Eric took 1 bite, broke out in hives, couldn't breathe, and then drank a bottle of Benadryl. Blacked out for hours, and when he came to call his friend, "I think my wife was trying to poison me." He said it out loud to someone who could have helped, and it still wasn't enough. Kouri went back to Lauber, said the pills weren't strong enough, needed more. Within a week, Eric Richins died. March 4th, 2022, Kouri made Eric a Moscow Mule, said they were celebrating a real estate deal. He drank it in bed. She went to sleep in another room with one of their sons. Came back around 3 a.m., found him cold. Called 911. The autopsy found 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his blood. Illicit fentanyl, ingested orally. The only adults in that house were Kouri and Eric. And the next morning, the morning after her husband's body was carried out, she signed papers to close a $2 million mansion. But she wasn't done performing. A year later, Kouri self-published a children's book called Are You With Me? A picture book with a father in angel wings watching over his son, dedicated to her amazing husband. She went on local television, sat there looking maternal and heartbroken, and told the host she wrote it to help her boys understand what happened to their dad. Except she didn't write it. Trial testimony revealed she paid a ghostwriter. Text messages proved it. She killed her husband, published a fake book about missing him, promoted it on TV, and didn't even write it herself. That's not grief. That's a brand strategy. Weeks after that television appearance, investigators arrested her. They found phone searches, fentanyl dosage and poisoning, how to delete iPhone messages, death benefit insurance payouts. The digital trail she thought she'd erased was still there. The trial, February 2026. 3 weeks, 42 witnesses. The housekeeper testified she sold Kouri fentanyl. Forensic accountant confirmed the financial collapse. The boyfriend broke down on the stand. Eric's sisters described a man who warned them and wasn't believed in time. The defense called 0 witnesses. Kouri didn't testify. The jury deliberated 3 hours. Guilty on every count. Aggravated murder. Attempted murder on Valentine's Day. Insurance fraud. Forgery. Kouri bowed her head. A juror later said she sat through the entire trial like a statue. No emotion, even as her life was taken apart in front of her. Outside the courthouse, Eric's sister Amy said it simply. It had been a long time coming. They were very happy they got justice for her brother. Eric's boys are with his family now. The mansion? Gone. The insurance money? Gone. The boyfriend? He testified against her. Kouri faces life in prison without parole. Her sentencing is set for May 13th, what would have been Eric's 44th birthday. In that children's book, Are You With Me? The one with the angel-winged father? It's evidence now. Read not by grieving children, but by a jury deciding whether the author killed the man on the cover. She thought she could poison a man in his own bed, sign a deal in the morning, write a book about missing him, and smile through the rest of her life. She was wrong, because karma never misses. It strikes deep.